Hare Krishna. Welcome to another evening in Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. I'm your host, Chataratma Das. I want to thank you all for joining us. We did a little video audio check ahead of time and wanted to make sure everything was fine, so we've got it up and running. I can see it was a little confusing for some of you in the chat room, but now everybody's got the idea. So just a little test so that if we do have any technical difficulties, we can straighten that out ahead of time instead of while we're actually live with you. I see we have a nice crew in the chat room tonight. Bhakti Carol, Dr. Patrick, Dr. Greg, who's had some correspondence with me. Nice to have you with us. And Grahster.com. Okay, whoever you are, welcome. Those of you that are new to the chat room as we go through, if you're listening in and decide to drop in, we'd be happy if you just give us a little note in there and let us know where you're listening from. It's always enjoyable to know what different parts of the World Wide Web, as it's called, we are getting input from. So I wanted to share a couple of realizations before we start tonight's program. I recently was fortunate enough that I got a new computer. Actually, it was more a question of necessity. The computer I have was the one that they used on the set of Fred Flintstone, and when they canceled that show, I got it. That's how old it was. So at any rate, I kind of had my files between the two. Everything hadn't been moved over yet. And I was doing some research and came across the necessity of looking in Prabhupada's books for something. Now, of course, many of us out there, and myself, we all have a full set of Prabhupada's books. And the process of physically going through the index, finding the subject, checking the pages, oh, that was the wrong volume, let me go to here, can be a little time consuming. It's one of the amazing wonders of the modern age that we live in which we can just go to the internet, open up our Bhaktivedanta folio base, and plug in a few words, and boom, comes right up. But I didn't have that available. But I did have internet. So I was able to go to Krishna.com, go to read, go to ebooks, pick the particular book that I needed, the particular volume that I thought I was looking for, and bingo, there we were. So this for me was just another one of the examples of how important and how wonderful it is to have Krishna.com available to us. Another example, I had come across a verse when I was giving a class at the Gainesville Center on Pariksit Maharaj and his youth and like that. And Prabhupada says some very poignant things in the purport there. Matter of fact, I would recommend it to all of you if you grab a pen. Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 12th chapter, text number 30. 1st Canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th chapter, text number 30. So I sent this to my children. I sent this little note to look at this verse. And my son wrote me back. He said, actually, I don't have that particular volume of the Bhagavatam, but I can go online and get it. So went to Krishna.com and bingo, pulled it right up. Can we move the camera in a little bit, the angle? Yeah. So at any rate, this is just like I say, one of the wonderful ways that Krishna.com is there to facilitate our devotional service. So these programs on Monday night, programs on Tuesday night, programs on Wednesday night, the live programs on Thursday and Friday night, these are all ways that Krishna.com serves the Vaishnava community. And of course, what to speak of locally, whatever temple we're in. I know we have members in our chat room audience here from Dallas, from Columbus, here in Alachua. So this is an opportunity to get live broadcasts from our temples via the webcams that are in place and the audio hookups. So I just like to mention these things so that we don't forget how fortunate we are to have this access to Krishna.com, and how if you have the opportunity, the inclination, the facility, and would like to help support the wonderful work they do all over the globe here, www.krishna.com/donate. So, you know, it's a very nice facility, and we should always be appreciative of it. I see Manjesh is here with us too. Nice to have you in. Sometimes he makes it, sometimes not. So tonight, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that we just recently celebrated Shivratri. Actually, Friday was the appearance day of Lord Shiva. And I think it's important that we speak about Lord Shiva. I know the subject of our usual presentation is the Vaishnava saints and acharyas directly related to the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. But of course, Lord Shiva is somewhat, we can say, directly related because of his association with the Lord in the various pastimes that are described in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangala, like that. But I think it's important that we take a broader look at Lord Shiva as an individual. So as we do that tonight, I'd like to start off with these wonderful prayers here to Lord Shiva, and for the benefit of all of us to gain a little insight. I'll read the English only. I'll skip the Sanskrit. The first prayer: O Kshetrapala, Lord Shiva, protector of the holy Dham, you are certainly very merciful. Being kind to me, please give me love for Krishna. The second verse is just as nice. O Shivaji, Shankar, you are completely full in all qualities. You fulfill the desires of your devotees. Seeing you, I am offering this prayer to you. Please fulfill my desire and let me have unflinching faith to Lord Sri Krishna. And the last one here: I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Gopishwar Mahadeva, who is merciful Shiva himself. He removes all troubles and grants spiritual love in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So these prayers right here we see are wonderful expressions of how a devotee prays to Lord Shiva for giving devotional service to Krishna to him. We have a resource of many different names for Lord Shiva. Some of the common names that we have from the Bhagavatam: Lord Shiva, Rudra, Mahadev, Gopishwar. These are some of his names. Actually, there's the Astatara Satya Shiva Ashtakam, the 108 names of Lord Shiva, which give all of the different variations of his qualities and his manifestations. And in this way, we can appreciate some of the broader varieties of Lord Shiva's personality. And he is a very amazing individual. We have basically in the creation, we have the Jiva Tattva and the Vishnu Tattva. Vishnu Tattva means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jiva Tattva means us, the conditioned souls. In between these two is what's called Shiva Tattva. And this is a special category for Lord Shiva and his particular expansions. Now, according to the Nectar of Devotion, we understand that Lord Vishnu, even Lord Vishnu, being the personality of Godhead, is an expansion from Krishna, so he doesn't have the full qualities. Krishna has % qualities. Lord Vishnu has 94% of those qualities. Lord Shiva has 84% of those qualities. And we, the Jivas, have the ability to develop up to 78% of those qualities of the Lord. This is the difference in Lord Shiva, although not the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one of the Vishnu Tattva categories. He is a very special category of his own right because of his, as we will see, because of his firm devotion and his ability, as these prayers indicate, to award devotion to the Lord, to his followers. So we may nonetheless have the question, why should we worship Lord Shiva? We get very clear instruction in the Bhagavad Gita. We get very clear instruction in the Bhagavad Gita that we should not worship the demigods. Krishna explains in the Gita that one who worships the demigods is considered to be of lesser intelligence, and actually being so actually only goes at the time of death to the planet of the demigods. It doesn't actually attain the supreme abode of Krishna himself, but goes to the abode of the demigods themselves. So even further, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gives very clear instruction because, of course, as we've discussed many times in the pastimes of Mahaprabhu and in the pastimes of Nityananda and Advaita, most recently in the last couple of weeks, the worship of Durga, very, very prominent at that time in Bengal. So, excuse me. In this way, Lord Chaitanya, he instructed that one should not worship these personalities. And even just following Mahaprabhu, keeping in his mood, Narottam Das Thakur in his writings has explained that the worship of the demigods is not to be taken as a proper path of devotional service. So then, how is it that we understand that we are encouraged to give worship to Lord Shiva? Well, one of the things that we have to appreciate is the unique position of Lord Shiva. Aside from his uniqueness in that he has these special qualities or capability of these special qualities, 84% as we mentioned, which is greater than that of the ordinary jivas, he's also one of the 12 Mahajans. Now these are, as those of you listening will know for certain, these are the 12 great personalities who share with us the path of devotional service. They are the persons who perfect different aspects of devotional service. Among them we have Brahma, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, as we've mentioned, the 4 Kumaras, Kapila, Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, Sri Prahlad, Janaka, Bhishma, Bali, Sukadev, and Yamaraj. Now, Prabhupada, in listing these 12 Mahajans, does make one particular point. Excuse me. Prabhupada does make one particular point that of these 12 Mahajans, the majority of them are all Grihastas. Sometimes we, the picture's frozen, I'm seeing here. Well, I've just found out here that the picture is frozen. I hope the sound hasn't frozen. Someone in the chat room give me a little background on whether the sound is also frozen or not. Before we continue any further, let's find out if we're getting, so everything's okay now. Okay, good, good. Sometimes you get those glitches. So in indicating the activities of the Mahajans, Srila Prabhupada points out that of these 12 Mahajans, the majority of them are Grihastas. That in the process of devotional service, we many times have the idea that the teachers of Vedic knowledge are the renunciates, the sannyasis, the great sages that live a life of renunciation and have their hermitages in the forest and like that. But here, amongst these 12 Mahajans, let's just go through the list. We have Brahma, who is a Grihasta. We have Narada, who is a Brahmachari. We have Shiva, who's a Grihasta. We have the 4 Kumaras, who are Brahmachari. We have Kapila, who is Brahmachari. We have Manu, who is a Grihasta. We have Prahlad, who is a Grihasta. We have Janaka, who is a Grihasta. We have Bhishma, who is Brahmachari. All of you know this story very well. Then we have Sukadev, and then we have Yamaraj. So it's a little balanced, a little bit more on the Grihasta side, but 60-40, say. So the indication is that one does not necessarily have to be in this high renunciate state. But back to the original point of bringing the Mahajans into here. When we approach someone for Vedic knowledge, this is the mood that one requires, and that is to offer homage, to offer respect, to give some worship, as the word would be plainly, to that person who is instructing us, who is imparting that spiritual knowledge to us. So from this platform, we can see that these 12 personalities, despite where they may come from, and there are a handful of demigods there. Matter of fact, one of them is the king of the demons, Bali Maharaj himself. I mean, not that he's in that family of the demons, not his position in devotional service is very clear. But we see that their background is not so much taken into account, their externals. Instead, the fact that they are presenting the science of devotional service. And what is the greatest principle in devotional service? The most important quality of a spiritual teacher is humility. Because without humility, one cannot learn the science from their teacher. Without humility, one cannot accept the responsibility on behalf of the Lord of imparting that. And without humility, one cannot present it in such a way that others will accept it. We have in the life of our own Srila Prabhupada the greatest of humility. The circumstances to which Srila Prabhupada came to America, the circumstances upon which he preached, the facility to which he had to place himself in just to carry on the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this humility is very, very important. And it's this humility of Lord Shiva that we will address here as to why it is actually worthy to worship him. The source that we're going to refer to in this regards is the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Brihat Bhagavatamrita is a book written by Sanatana Goswami. And the first portion of this book, it's a very, very wonderful book. And it has been put into a wonderful audio format by Dhruva Maharaj Das and his wife Samapriya. And it's available through sadhusanga.com. And they have presented it in a very enticing and enjoyable manner to hear. I had the great fortune this morning. I had to go into work a bit early before we opened up to the public. And I had about an hour just to myself to be able to listen to this while I was doing some work. And I can guarantee you that it's just such a wonderful, wonderful format to hear the Brihat Bhagavatamrita in. So I encourage you all to look into that. At any rate, in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, in the beginning of it, Narada Muni is seeking out that person who has received the mercy of Krishna. That person who he can understand has most fully been given the mercy of Lord Krishna, and that it is manifested in his activities. So he begins to go about this process. Now, first off, yes, someone has just put in the chat room. If you have the opportunity to join the chat room, one of our listeners has put in the actual email address for Sadhusanga. Sadhusanga.com/node, NODE/45. That will bring you Brihat Bhagavatamrita. At any rate, so Narada Muni is desirous of finding who is that person that has received the mercy of Krishna. So first he finds one very advanced Brahmana and goes to this person. And that Brahmana, upon hearing the purpose of Narada, Narada glorifies his activities. And the Brahmana says to him, no, you've misunderstood. I actually haven't received the mercy of the Lord. You should instead go to such and such powerful king, a great ruler and great Prajapati and like that. So he finds his king. And indeed, the king is everything he has been told. And he goes to the king, and the king, understanding Narada's purpose, says, no, actually, you really, you've been a little bit misled. It's not that, I'm the one that you want. Instead, he encourages him to seek out Lord Indra, the king of the demigods. And so, in approaching Lord Indra also points out that, no, this isn't correct. You really should see Lord Brahma. After all, he is the creator of the universe, and he has been imbibed with the full mercy of the Lord for the purpose of creating this universe and maintaining it. And actually, just a quick side note as we progress in here, Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu, who's in our chat room, has mentioned that if you go to sadhusanga.com/node/140, it's a discounted opportunity to get access to Brihat Bhagavatamrita. So thank you very much for that, Dhruva Maharaj. So then once he goes to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma understands, Lord Brahma, now his relationship with Lord Brahma is worth noting here. Lord Brahma is his father, and Lord Brahma is actually his guru as well. So as the guru and the father, he is in a very unique position to give instructions to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is very much interested in hearing these instructions. So I'm sorry, Narada Muni. Brahma giving instructions to Narada Muni. So Lord Brahma explains to him that actually even myself, I haven't really fully received the mercy of the Lord. You want to find Lord Shiva, Mahadeva himself. That he is exactly the polar opposite of me. I am living in great opulence and Swarga Lok here, in the highest of opulence and enjoying so nicely like this. But Lord Shiva, he is the most renounced, living just under a simple tree, and he is completely detached and uninterested in anything material. He can even award liberation, something Lord Brahma openly admits he can't do. So he is the one, Brahma instructs, that you really want to see if you want to find out about the person who has actually received the mercy of the Lord. Now, it's interesting to note that Lord Brahma gives him a bit of advice. He says, when you're going to find Lord Shiva, you'll go to Kailash, but there are two Kailashas. One is the Kailash of Kuvera, the king of the demigods. The treasurer of the demigods. And you can just imagine, if you're the treasurer of the demigods, if you're the treasurer of any particular wealthy person, you have certain facilities. And the treasurer of the demigods, my goodness, such opulence and such incredible wealth, and everything is surrounding him in this way. And this circumstance is, you would expect to find Lord Shiva living in a very amazing situation like this. But Brahma instructs him, actually don't go to look for him there. That's just a fraction, a portion, an expansion of himself. He says, actually, in his own Kailash, it is beyond the 7 layers of this material world. It is not of this material world. Now you remember that the Jivas, I mentioned 78% of the qualities, but they are still bound by the constraints of being here in the material world. And then of course we have Lord Vishnu and the Vaikuntha planets. Somewhere in between there is Lord Shiva's abode. And actually he describes that Lord Shiva's abode is eternal. It's full of happiness. It's full of splendor. And in that abode, what does Lord Shiva do? He worships his own personal Lord, his own Istadev, Lord Sankarshan. Now this is important to note as we approach this idea of the humility of Lord Shiva, because a great personality, we might think, well, such a great personality, why would, everyone would worship them? But that is the sign of one's greatness, is that they're not accepting that worship directly. Just like Srila Prabhupada, so many times we offered so many praises to Srila Prabhupada, and he simply took that on behalf of his spiritual master. He would always defer that praise or compliment to his spiritual master. In the same way here we see that Lord Shiva is engaged in worshipping a form of the Lord Sankarshan. And this is his personal deity that he worships. This is the Lord of his heart, if you will. So Brahma's final words are instructive to him. He says to Narada Muni, he says, you actually can travel to this abode. Now this is, of course, one of the unique qualities of Narada Muni. He is not restricted by the constraints of an ordinary jiva. He has the benediction that he can come here and go there, travel throughout all the different aspects of creation, material, spiritual, marginal, all of this. So Lord Brahma tells him, he says, you have the power to go there because you are a pure devotee of Lord Shiva. Narada Muni, a pure devotee of Lord Shiva. He says, so go and take shelter of him, and then you will see that person who has actually received the mercy of the Lord. So Narada has been given quite a build-up, quite a big description of the glories of Lord Shiva, and he proceeds to the abode of Kailash, all the time chanting the holy names of Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna, chanting them both together like this. So there's an amazing description that the Brihad Bhagavatamrita gives of Narada's arrival. It mentions that he arrived just after Lord Shiva had completed his puja of Sankarshan. And what does one do after the puja is finished? Well, there's Arti and Kirtan. Excuse me. There's Arti and Kirtan after one does puja. And so, in this method of Kirtan going on, Lord Shiva is jubilantly chanting the holy names of the Lord and dancing in great ecstasy. While he is engaged in this, of course, all of his followers are following suit. Those of us who had the opportunity, if we were with Srila Prabhupada in some kirtan and Prabhupada got up and danced, you know everyone danced. You can see on many of the video footage that's been provided for us by Yadavar Prabhu that when Prabhupada would get up and dance, everyone would dance with him. And there was not a foot to be found on the floor. So in the same way, Lord Shiva is dancing very ecstatically and chanting the holy names of the Lord. And all of his followers are similarly dancing, playing different instruments, and also dancing and chanting the names of the Lord. And what is Lord Shiva doing? The amazing thing is, this is one of the first signs of his humility, is he is verbally glorifying his followers for their service. Now, this is an important thing because it shows two things. It shows that he is not so arrogant and puffed up to think that only he should be glorified, but he is equally appreciating the service of those that he is encouraging in the process of devotional service themselves. So this is very, very wonderful that such a personality, and we hear again, we saw this in Srila Prabhupada, that Prabhupada always gave us encouragement. So in this way, Narada comes on this scene. Lord Shiva has just finished his puja. He's chanting and dancing the holy names. His followers are dancing. He's encouraging each of the followers like this. And Narada Muni is just completely astounded. So when he arrives there, he enters in and he says, "All glories to you! All glories to you! You, Lord Shiva, who are the most certainly the greatest recipient of the mercy of the Lord." And as he says this, he then begins to bow down to touch the feet of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva immediately reaches down and takes Narada Muni by the shoulders and lifts him up and embraces him firmly to his chest. Very, very fondly he embraces him in this way. And then it mentions that, let me just get caught up here. That then Narada Muni, as he is embraced in this way, he begins to glorify Lord Shiva. And eventually there's some conversation, some greeting like this. And Lord Shiva eventually sits down. Narada Muni encourages him to sit. And with his followers surrounding him, he begins to kind of calm himself after this ecstatic kirtan and this wonderful arrival of Narada Muni. And so then Narada continues to proceed to glorify Lord Shiva. And he bows down to him and speaks about the way that Lord Shiva has received the mercy of Lord Krishna. And he goes on like this. Now, Sanatana Goswami at this point describes Lord Shiva as the best of the Vaishnavas. And it mentions that being the best of the Vaishnavas, he very quickly grows tired of hearing himself praised. Now, most of us, we are steeped in false ego, and humility is a quality that we do not possess. And so we're very happy to hear others talk about us, to speak well of us. But Lord Shiva is not satisfied with this. He immediately takes his hands and covers his ears. He says, "I am not the object of Lord Krishna's mercy. I am just a poor soul who is hankering to be graced by the mercy of the servants of the Lord." Now this is very, very instructive, because we see this same mood in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's famous verse, "Gopi Bhartur Pada Kamalaya Dasa 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 Nudasa," that I simply desire to be the servant of the servant of the servant. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood. And so we see the same mood is there in Lord Shiva. He's not thinking, "I am a great personality. I've received the mercy of the Lord, therefore it is instructive that others learn from me. Just see how much mercy I've received. No, he says, I'm just a poor suffering soul. I am simply trying to get the mercy of the servants of the Lord. So Narada continues, and it's interesting that he thinks to himself, the Lord Shiva's not satisfied with this. Maybe I've offended him. Maybe I've said something wrong. So he begins to present his case. Now, it mentions specifically that he begins to speak softly. Because if you think that you've made an offense at someone, you want to try and convince them that you haven't, but you don't want to be very forceful. You want to be very accommodating. So Narada Muni, he says to him, he says, but my dear Lord, in truth, you both understand the glories of the Lord and the mystery of the Lord, and you teach that to your followers. Now, this is an important point because we know from the final chapters of Bhagavad Gita, some of the later instructions that Lord Krishna gives, he says that one who teaches this message, devotional service of the Bhagavad Gita, to my devotees is very dear to me. So, in this way, the Lord indicates that one who takes it upon themselves to share Krishna consciousness, and after all, isn't everyone the devotee of the Lord? Some have simply forgotten it. It's our job to remind them. So, Krishna says that one who does this, he's very dear to me. So, Narada Muni is presenting this point because Narada Muni is, of course, very well versed in all the Shastras, and he states to him, you understand it, you appreciate it, and you share it with others. This is true, so therefore. And then Narada continues on. He says, as a result of this activity of giving Krishna consciousness, first of all, knowing Krishna consciousness fully and giving it to others, the best of the devotees desire your mercy. They seek your praise, just like that prayer at the very beginning. You are certainly very merciful. Being kind, please give me love for Krishna. This is the prayer the devotee offers to Shiva. So Narada's using this. He's very intelligent. He's using this to convince Lord Shiva, no, what I'm saying is actually correct. He says, and even Lord Krishna himself speaks your glories. There are many, many different places through the Shastra that we find that Lord Krishna glorifies the activities of Lord Shiva. And he says, how many times has the Lord in his various incarnations actually worshipped you? And how many times has he actually sought boons from you? Now, certainly what I'm saying must be true. I can't be wrong in saying this. So, at this point, you would think Narada Muni has sealed the deal, so to speak. He's made all the proper presentation. But we find here that Lord Shiva does something that I've never read anywhere else in Shastra of anyone doing in a discourse. And he actually gets up and he walks over to Narada Muni and he puts both hands over Narada Muni's mouth. Now, sometimes if you're a parent and you're raising children, your children get a little rambunctious, you might put your hand on their mouth. Please, shh, shh. First, you'll touch your own. Stop, okay? And then you may actually put your hand on their mouth. But if the child sometimes you put both hands on them, So, in this way, Narada Muni has his mouth covered by both hands of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva then says to him, don't speak these reckless words of nonsense. Let me instead just tell you how incomprehensible is my Lord. So here again, a sign of humility. The devotee does not want to be praised. The devotee wants to instead glorify the Lord. So Lord Shiva covers Narada's mouth, says, no. These words, these are not proper. Don't speak like this. Let me instead tell you about my Lord. And then he goes on, he says, my Lord is a deep ocean of qualities. Many, many times I've offended him, Lord Shiva says, and he does not reject me. So now, Narada is very smart, as we've mentioned, and while Lord Shiva is absorbed in this mood of praising the Lord, Narada Muni takes the opportunity to touch Lord Shiva's feet and then sits back down. So in this way, Narada also shows a deep understanding of these subtle differences. Now, Narada then says one very important thing here. And what he says indicates his clear understanding of the difference between material and spiritual vision. We've all had this experience of a devotee and a non-devotee perceiving things differently. So Narada then says to Lord Shiva, he says, "You are so very dear to that infallible Lord. When have you ever offended the Lord?" He says, not only would have you ever, but it is not possible for you to offend the Lord. In the eyes of the common people, it might seem that sometimes you may have offended the Lord, but the Lord doesn't take any offense from you. So Narada Muni points out that common people, in other words, those who don't have spiritual vision, that have not been properly trained to see things through the eyes of Shastra, they may observe that, oh, look, he's committed some offense. But this isn't the case. This isn't what reality is. Narada then gives the following examples. He said, when your disciple, Banasura, now Banasura, some of you may remember from the Krishna book, Banasura was a big demon, had many, many arms. And he got into this big fight with Lord Vishnu, the details which we'll go into in a little. But he got into this big fight with Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu started cutting off all of his different arms. And Lord Shiva didn't want his disciple to be killed, so he offered prayers to Lord Krishna and requested him, please, you don't kill him. And because of the prayers offered by Lord Shiva, Krishna agreed to spare the life of his disciple Bana. And not only did Banasura get his life spared, but because Lord Shiva interceded on his behalf, Lord Vishnu granted Bana a four-armed Vaikuntha form. Well, this is the amazing thing. And then Narada Muni uses another example. He says, just like Chitraketu and others, they have offered words of criticism and offense to you. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's this story of how Chitraketu criticized Lord Shiva and Lord Parvati when they were sitting together in public like this. And he says, but even in these times, you do not criticize them because they are devotees of your Lord. Now, I thought this was particularly instructive on behalf of Lord Shiva, is that when criticized by a devotee, not only did Lord Shiva not take any direct retaliation against that devotee, but the reason was because he saw that devotee is a devotee of my Lord that I worship. Therefore, how can I offer some criticism, some retaliation? So he simply quietly accepted these things. So these examples are given by Narada Muni. He says that even though you have opulences and power equal to Lord Brahma and the other demigods, you yourself have a very low opinion of material happiness. Now, how many of us wouldn't like to have that? I mean, we all have a very high opinion of material enjoyment. Matter of fact, we spend so much of our time madly pursuing material happiness. Why? Because we think it will give us some pleasure. But Lord Shiva, he has a very low opinion of material happiness. It's not considered to be anything very suitable for him. He's not very concerned about it. So Narada Muni continues on. He says, and not only that, you live dressed in simply the 10 directions. You're not dressed in some opulent type of wardrobe, but simply in the 10 directions. This means just the elements. And then he says, you are always, in addition, totally fixed in trance on Lord Vishnu. We've all seen the pictures of Mahadeva sitting in that perfect yoga posture, in eyes closed in a meditative trance. He's meditating on Lord Vishnu. So he says, I have seen all this, and now I know that you are indeed the most loved by Lord Krishna. This is Narada Muni's proclamation after observing everything. Now, it mentions next that Shiva becomes a little bit embarrassed. And what does an embarrassed person do? They lower their head. They actually put their head down. a little bit ashamed of the circumstances they find themselves in. So Lord Shiva says, in this great mood of humility, not showing his face, lowering it out of this humility, he says, let me just make a point. He says, how painful is it for me to hear these words that you're speaking? Now, here again, most of us were very, very satisfied to hear someone speak some glorious words about our activities and praise us, especially if it's within earshot. You know, we like to have that very much. But Lord Shiva says this is painful. He says, Narada, you yourself, you are free from all pride, yet I am the root of all pride. Any pride there is has its root from me. He then says, Lord Krishna, he is the Lord of all the prideless sages who are steeped in humility. How can you count me among those persons? And besides, what is my job? What is my service? My service is at the time of annihilation, the Lord calls on me, now destroy everything I've done. Lord Brahma gets to assist him in creating it. But me, when he wants it destroyed, he comes, now you destroy everything. This is my big service, to tear apart everything the Lord has made. He then says that this service, I'm very much ashamed of this. He continues on, if I had even one drop of mercy from the Lord, would I have fought with him over a parijata flower? Now this story is told very much in detail in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just briefly, one of Krishna's queens in Dwarka, Satyabhama, desired a parijata flower, which prior to this only were in the heavenly planets. And so Krishna went to take one parijata tree, just one, to bring down for his queen. And there was a big fight between Krishna and some of the demigods. And Lord Shiva's disciple, Banasura, was involved in this fight. And at any rate, there was this fighting. And so Lord Shiva says, if I had even a drop of the Lord's mercy, would I have fought him over a parijata flower? And then he continues on and he says, and what about when Aniruddha took Usa from us? This is also told in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then there was this big battle. Vishnu, the Shivishvar, and the can't remember. The two great weapons that Vishnu and Lord Shiva fought with each other with. So he continued in this way. He said, I'm supposed to be a great teacher of devotional service, you say, and that I'm supposed to be known for this. But the Lord, he has very subtly punished me by instructing me, you appear and create a concoction of your own philosophy. Thus the birth of Mayavadi, of the impersonalist philosophy. But this is, of course, referring to Lord Shiva's appearance as Sankaracharya and his creation of this Mayavadi philosophy and propagating it like this. Now, of course, for the devotees, the philosophy of Mayavadism is very painful. So Lord Shiva is saying, I'm such a great proponent of devotional service, and why did the Lord punish me in this way? He had me go out and preach against devotional service. And then he continues to say, and as far as liberation, you say that I am able to give liberation, but those devotees of the Lord look upon this so-called liberation I can give and are disgusted by it. They're unhappy by it. So how can you say that this is a great benediction? He said, therefore, all of these things together, these show that I have not received the mercy of the Lord. Now, the final thing that Lord Shiva does here in this particular pastime that I think is the cinch pin, if you will, of his humility, is that he then says, if you want to know who really has received the mercy of the Lord, it is the residents of Vaikuntha. And then he begins to glorify the residents of Vaikuntha. So here again, he shows that a devotee is humble. He's not looking to get praise for himself. Instead, he's saying, no, They're the ones you want to glorify. They're the ones you want to worship. That's where you'll find the real goal that you're looking for. The residents of Vaikuntha, they're the actual recipients of His mercy. So, in this way, we find that Lord Shiva not only has the ability to give us access to the devotional service to the Lord, but due to His great humility, is a wonderful example for us to follow in our own development in the process of devotional service. So this is the mood that I propose that those that claim to be followers of Lord Shiva should accept. Most of the time we find people take to the process of worshiping Lord Shiva either for some justification in their pursuit of illicit intoxication or for some type of benefit for their material activities. And of course, this is the interesting thing, is that Lord Shiva lives under a tree, dressed practically in nothing and has no material possessions. Yet he benedicts his followers with great wealth because they have material motive. And on the other hand, we have Lord Vishnu, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, the most unlimited of wealth and opulence. And what happens to the followers of Lord Vishnu? He very kindly takes everything away from them. Prabhupada would quote this verse many times throughout his own life, that Krishna says, when I particularly favor someone, I take away those things which are the obstacles in their path. So in this mood, we pray to Lord Shiva to remove the obstacles in the path of our devotional service and bless us with love for Krishna. Bless us with entrance into the mood of Vrindavan and the residents there who only have that mood and that mind of glorifying Lord Krishna. So I'd like to conclude this glorification of Lord Shiva by reading the Sri Shivastakam. Now this was written actually by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. We know when Lord Chaitanya traveled in South India that he regularly visited all the temples of Lord Shiva that he came across. This is detailed in great part in the Madhya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And this particular astakam, or 8 prayers, is found in Murari Gupta's Sri Chaitanya Charita Mahakavya. It's one of the books of the Chaitanya literatures glorifying Lord Chaitanya, and it comes directly from the writings of Murari Gupta. So we're going to read these 8 prayers that give the praise that is offered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Lord Shiva. Now, as we're reading these, we're coming near an end of tonight's program, and those of you that are in our chat room, if you have any questions you'd like to post, you can put these up now, and then when we're finished reading these prayers, I'll look over and we'll do our best to answer whatever may be there. Okay, so the Sri Shivastakam of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 8 prayers in glorification of Lord Shiva. I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you, the controller of the 30 primal demigods, unto you, the original Father of all created beings, unto you, whose character is gracious, unto you, whose head is crested with a crescent moon that has arisen from the waves of the Ganges, and unto you, who are a festival for the eyes of the fair goddess Glory. I offer my obeisances unto you, who are dressed in garments resembling molten gold, the moon, blue lotuses, coral, and dark rain clouds, unto you who bestow the most desirable boon on your devotees by means of your delightful dancing, unto you who are the master of the impersonalists, and unto you whose flag bears the image of a bull. I offer my obeisances unto you who dispels darkness with your 3 eyes, the moon, the sun, and fire, unto you who causes auspiciousness for all living entities in the universe, and unto you whose potency easily defeats that of thousands of suns and moons. I offer my obeisances unto you, whose form is brilliantly illuminated by the jewels of Ananta, the king of the snakes, unto you who are clothed in a tiger skin and thus radiate divine effulgence, and unto you who sits upon a 1,000-petaled lotus, and unto you whose arms are adorned by lustrous bangles. I offer my obeisances unto you, who brings happiness happiness to your servitors, as you pour on them the liquid nectar from your 2 red lotus feet, which ring with charming ankle bells. Obeisances unto you, who is adorned with an abundance of gems. I pray, please endow with me the pure love of Lord Hari. O Sri Ram, O Govinda, O Mukunda, O Shari, O Sri Krishna, O Narayana, O Vasudeva. I offer my obeisances unto you, Lord Shiva, the monarch of intoxicated bee-like devotees, maddened by drinking the nectar of these and other holy names of the Supreme Lord. Obeisances unto you, destroyer of all grief. Dukkha-hantri, one who destroys grief. I offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto you, who is forever inquired of confidentially by Sri Narada and other sages. Unto you who also grants favor to them very quickly. Unto you who bestows the happiness of Hari Bhakti. Unto you who creates auspiciousness, and unto you who is the Guru of everyone. I offer my obeisances unto you who are a festival of auspiciousness for the eyes of goddess Gauri. Unto you who is the monarch of her life breath. Unto you who is capable of bestowing transcendental rasa. And unto you who is expert in forever singing songs in glorification of the pastimes of Lord Govinda. Then Lord Chaitanya concludes these 8 prayers with the following benedictions. That person filled with loving feelings who hears with rapt attention this wonderful 8-fold prayer to Lord Shiva can quickly attain Sri Hari Prem, as well as transcendental knowledge, the realization of that knowledge, and unprecedented devotional powers. So, very, very wonderful prayers written by Lord Chaitanya, glorifying Lord Shiva, and very wonderful mood that we can appreciate in the quality of humility present in Lord Shiva as we aspire to be instructed and enlivened by Lord Shiva, just one of the 12 Mahajans that we listed at the beginning of this class. So we thank you very much. Just going to take a look here at the notes here. Excuse me, the questions here. Keith asks here that many people are not capable of loving a God that can destroy the universe. They can only fear such a God. So is fear of God bad? Well, fear of such a quality, such an ability greater than oneself does show intelligence. You know, many of us go through life thinking that there is nothing greater than ourselves. This is an unfortunate illusioned state. What was it when I was looking up different quotes on humility? I mentioned this in a class that says that when the scientists discover the center of the universe, there are going to be many people that will be greatly disappointed. Mm-hmm. So, in one sense, it's good to fear God, but fear alone will not develop love within the heart. Fear may force us to behave, so to speak, and out of that fear we may act in a certain way, but that will only last for some time. What we need to do is we need to develop love for someone, and that love, just like a father and a child, if the child only fears the father, there can't be any loving reciprocation. But if the child respects the position the father has to give guidance, discipline, instruction as needed, yet at the same time has a loving relationship with him, then the complete nature of that relationship can manifest itself. So in the same way, we have to have some fear of God's potency, but at the same time we have to develop some mood of love towards him. Otherwise, how can we expect to return to his eternal abode? So that would be my answer to that question. So we're going to finish here this evening and thank all of you once again for joining us here on our Monday evening Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. We encourage you to be with us again in 2 weeks when we will again talk about some great personality in his service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Thank you very much. My name is Chaturapma. Hare Krishna.
Where was that conversation from? Narada Muni and
Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
yeah.
Yeah. Second chapter. We didn't check numbers ahead of time.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. What were they?
I left the page there, so the number will
still be the same, and then we'll refresh 91199.
91199. Okay.
So we're still live.
911.